All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our second lunch hour webinar for the LPC board. My name is Christina DeLuna. I'm the board administrator for the LPC board. I'm going to send it over to Chair Stephen Hallbauer.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us. Like Christina mentioned, this is our second of these insights over the lunch hour presentations. The LPC board has really jumped in and committed themselves to doing these as occasionally as possible when we have a subject that we believe is interesting and can provide value. And we appreciate everybody joining us today. Like Christina said, my name is Stephen Hallbauer. I'm the board chair. I'm a private practice attorney from Rockwall, and I will hand it to Janie to introduce herself.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Janie Stubblefield. I am an LPC supervisor, and I serve as a professional member on the Texas State Board of Examiners of Professional Counselors. And I have to say, as we were in our little practice session, we were, kind of saying, "Oh, we're excited. We're looking forward to this." And Christina said, "Yeah." And I was looking at the participants, and there were like 5, and I just had an anxiety peak as I look over, and now we're over 250, and so excited to be with you all today and have just a little bit of a discussion about our profession and how we can serve the wonderful people in the great state of Texas.
Thank you, Janie. Vanessa, will you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone, or afternoon. My name is Vanessa Hall, and I am a public member on the board. I also have a practice for Christian counseling and life coaching, and I also conduct couples retreats. And so I am so delighted to be here today. I have spent time with the board working on this Lunch and Learn, and I'm excited to be able to share what I know and some of the things that I've learned in my practice. And by the way, I hope you're having a great Thursday. It's beautiful weather here in Houston, and the humidity is low. It's a great day. So this should be a great time together.
Thank you, Vanessa. Everyone attending, for the majority of the time, our board administrator, Christina, will be coordinating the PowerPoint presentation, and she will do a share screen on that. This is mostly going to be a discussion between Ms. Stubblefield and Ms. Hall. Once we get through the presentation, the plan is to have a few minutes at the end of the hour to take some questions. Christina, are we okay with putting the questions in the chat during the hour?
Yes, that's fine. And we'll get to them as quickly as we can. I know we already have one in the Q&A part too. So we'll monitor it and answer what we can. And if it doesn't get answered, by the end, we can go ahead. You can raise your hand and we can try and get to all of those questions before it ends. All
right. So okay. Thank you. And we'll go ahead and get started. Janie and Vanessa, I will hand it over to y'all. And if some questions come up, I will rudely interrupt, but I will try not to do that very often. So let's go ahead and get started.
All right. You ready for me to share a screen?
Yes, that would be great.
All right. Let's see here. Trying to find one again. Make sure I do the right one. Let's see. All right. You guys can see the screen?
Yep.
All right.
So I'll just do a brief introduction. Today's discussion, it says rules, practices, and ethics when treating clients seeking holistic approaches to therapy. I want to make sure that we're very clear. This is a high overview of the rules and the ethics. We will not cover the entire ethics code. Have just picked out a couple of key things for us to share as we get into what we're going to be discussing today. And Christina, the next slides are learning objectives. And Vanessa, I'm going to let you cover that one.
Okay, so the learning objectives for today are threefold. After taking this training, the LPC should be able to, at a very high level, understand how holistic therapy seeks to help clients beyond psychological care. And two, it should differentiate ethical versus non-ethical requirements for offering holistic care. And three, LPC should be able to understand when to provide resources and referrals beyond your scope for your client's holistic care. So those are the three main learning objectives that should come out of this training. And so let's delve into it and see if we can unpack those three for everyone. The next slide, please. So the question is asked, what is holistic therapeutic care versus professional counseling? And I'm on the holistic therapeutic care side. So I want to speak to that, just share a little bit about what holistic therapeutic care is. Holistic therapeutic care is a type of therapy that addresses the whole person. This kind of therapy integrates spiritual, physical, mental, and emotional forms of a person's well-being. Its goal is to help individuals develop a deeper understanding of themselves in all these levels if possible, and to seek the intersection of body-mind relationship. It's very similar, holistic therapeutic care is very similar to general therapy or counseling, but it often draws on what we call complementary and alternative practices that the therapist may have in their toolbox. And I'll touch on these various strategies and modalities a little later. These are areas that a person can receive from holistic care. So generally speaking, that is what therapeutic holistic care is. It's looking at the body-mind relationship holistically.
So on the professional counseling side, and that's why I'm sitting at the table today, is for Vanessa and I to be able to compare and contrast holistic care versus professional counseling. So the professional counselor, and each of you through your programs looked at life stages, life stage development. We also looked at diagnosis and how to evaluate client symptoms to be able to come to that diagnosis that then sets our treatment plan. The spiritual piece, unless you were in a program like myself that intentionally covered that spiritual piece, your program might have said, here are some aspects to consider, but maybe not integrated fully the spiritual part. But even as a professional counselor, if that is something that your client brings to the table, to be able to look at that family of origin, to be able to respect their personal beliefs and have those questions about their involvement and their history in how their spirituality support system comes in play with their mental health. Professional counseling, however, also client focused, but we come with a theoretical basis. Okay, so whether your theory is Adlerian or CBT or DBT or existential or psychoanalysis or there's so many more. You kind of come to the table, to that therapeutic session with that theoretical basis in mind. And so looking at your client from that whole person aspect with your theory in mind is really the professional counseling model that each of us practices. Christina, next slide.
And so before we go to the next one, just simply so you can see, everyone, that there is an intersection with therapeutic care and professional counseling. As Janie and I just shared, there is a physical, intellectual, spiritual, and emotional component to helping a client, whether you're doing that on my side of the spectrum from a holistic therapeutic care, which some things I get into that are not appropriate or ethical for the professional counseling. But as a professional counselor, you also have the opportunity to actually help your clients in all four of these spectrums. Okay, I'm ready for the next one.
Well, real quick on this page, it looks like we have a question. What does FOO stand for?
Family of origin.
Thank you.
So as you're doing those histories, you get your family of origin. What is that? Go back to Christina. You want to ask that intellectual, what is that family of origin in terms of, what's the client's history, their academic attainment, what about their families, and their emotionally, what's the family of origin? Is there a trauma history? Is it only with your client? Is it generational, et cetera, et cetera. And most of you clinicians are going to know that we look at the client's age on several different aspects. What is their chronological age? I am trained in play therapy. I've seen a lot of kids in my career. And so if I've got a kiddo who is, 13 chronologically, and so their body looks like a 13-year-old. Intellectually, though, they maybe are in GT classes and they've been in gifted and talented and those programs for a number of years. So intellectually, maybe they're already starting to take some of those high school courses that intellectually their brain's able to do. But emotionally, if they had a trauma, and especially a severe, like a sexual abuse trauma or something like that when they were 6 or 7 years old, then emotionally, I'm saying, okay, then they're probably 6 or 7 years old emotionally. So in professional counseling, we're going to look at them in totality of, okay, biologically, they have a 13-year-old body. In their intellect, maybe they have a 15, 16, 17-year-old mind, but emotionally, they're still 6 and 7. And so we want to process that trauma at the appropriate age and stage to help them kind of integrate all of those and get their age in more of a cohesive balance there. So that's how we look at the family of origin and treatment. Next slide. So this is where we want to get into the rules. Rule 681.31, this is under counseling methods and practices, says the use of specific methods, techniques, or modalities within the practice of professional counseling is limited to the professional counselors appropriately trained and competent in how they've been appropriately trained and competent in the use of such methods, techniques, or modalities. And the rules goes into all of the, various different things. And so what I always encourage counselors to think about is not just what CEUs you've gone to or what articles you've read, but where have you been appropriately trained and competent? As I said, I was trained in play therapy early on in my career. And it's probably been now about 5 or 6 years ago, I started EMDR training. And I took this 40-hour workshop or whatever, and it came along with 10 hours of consultation, and you had to do case reviews and different things like that. And so I did some specific training. Now, many of us, and one of the resources I'll share later is Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's The Body Keeps the Score. Many of us have read, I hope all of us have read that book. If you haven't, put it on your to-do list. Or we've read an article about EMDR or something like that. Just reading an article or watching some of Francine Shapiro's videos, that's not necessarily going to get you to that appropriately trained and competent level. And so as you're looking at various methods and practices that you want to incorporate into your particular specialty, you want to make sure that you're competent to be able to use those in your practice. And there's so many specialties that you could choose. Maybe you're serving individuals on the autism spectrum disorder. Maybe you want to specialize in marriage counseling. Let me know, because I'm always looking for those referrals. I don't do that. I don't serve individuals who struggle, who have eating disorders. So whatever your specialty is that you want to do, that's what we're talking about, appropriately trained and competent. And that's a limitation here. Yeah. Now, Vanessa, you want to talk about this holistic care? Who seeks that?
You're on mute.
Okay. So the next question is, who typically seeks holistic care? So back on the holistic therapeutic care, more Americans, and research will bear this out, but more Americans are seeking holistic care. And again, holistic care is the intersection of the body and the mind. It's where we're looking at the person as a total person, their body, their mind, their spirit. So we're looking at them in totality. And so more Americans are seeking this type of care than just traditional counseling, and more are seeking holistic alternative medicine to just traditional conventional medicine. So there is a correlation that people who are seeking this type of holistic care are also seeking the remedies and the modalities that these holistic therapists tend to recommend their clients. Because holistic care may be helpful in treating many number of things that people go to traditional counselors to, and yet they need a psychiatrist or someone who can prescribe medication. And oftentimes the medication is conventional medications with quite a bit of side effects, and some of them are habit forming. Many clients are seeking alternatives. Clients' families are seeking alternatives to some of these habit forming and perhaps even debilitating type medicines. Some of the things that holistic care therapists are helping people with and why they are coming to them are for addictions, for anxiety, for depression, emotional difficulties, family problems, stress, trauma, work-related problems. So as you can see, all of these are very common to anyone that's seeing a counselor, a psychiatrist, or psychologist. And yet holistic therapists, Christian counselors, life coaches, they are all equipped and expert in helping people in a variety of these areas. Americans who have, and I've also done some research that who have tried traditional psychotherapy or traditional counseling, they are wanting to have opportunities to explore other remedies. And so I want to share a few remedies with you, because one of the largest demographics that's coming to holistic care therapists are 18 to 44-year-olds. Why? Because this age group tends to think that it's much more advancing in the things of culture than perhaps an older generation who has lived longer and has already gone through the traditional American healthcare and counseling. And so many older Americans are kind of comfortable with that type of care, but younger Americans are showing signs that they are willing to explore some of the non-conventional, non-traditional methods. And so these are the people that we see. For example, in my practice as a Christian counselor life coach, I see families that are interested in sitting down collectively as a family, talking through family matters. But they may also be seeing a psychiatrist or a psychologist for very specific needs that perhaps they have already been on a journey with these professionals. And so my care will kind of run tandem with these other professionals. And these are the people that seek holistic care. Another group of people that I've seen, and research bears it out, are people who have what they call this growing epidemic of PTSD in our society. More people are being diagnosed with this, and post-traumatic stress disorder, I'm sorry, it happens just through a course of ongoing trauma. And so I see more clients who deal with that area, and they're very interested in other remedies beyond just your simple medication. They want to work. They want to be active in school. They want their brain to be clear, not have brain fogginess. So many of them will say, I just can't be on the medication during the day. Or some will say, I'm looking for a particular remedy that can help me still engage in life or be a parent or be a student. So these are the people that I typically see. If you couple the people, the demographics of people that I see, it correlates with the research that I've done that 18-year-olds to 44-year-olds are the prominent groups of people who tend to explore holistic care. And that really is kind of the largest demographics of my client population. It's within that age range. So that's who I typically believe seek holistic care, is people who are advancing and may not be the older generation in our American society. Not to say that they don't and they can't or they're not interested, but typically younger people are still curious about different things and they're willing to take chances in areas that perhaps the older generation is much more traditional and like to stick with the standards. The next slide. So the next question is, what is involved in a typical holistic therapeutic care? There's a lot involved actually in therapeutic care holistically. A person is looking at, a therapist again is looking at the mind, the body, the spirit, the emotion. So they're looking at a person as a one composite unit, not in a kind of a separate unit. So for example, for physical well-being, a therapist might recommend daily exercising. You don't have to exercise for an hour, just exercise enough, 20 minutes or more, to get your metabolism raised, to be able to throw off some of the stress. And exercising has been proven by, science and just by empirically speaking, that it helps to relieve stress. It increases the brain's dopamine and serotonin levels, which means both of these chemicals that are released, they release needed and great moods, helpful moods that people need to function each day. So for example, dopamine is responsible for motivation. It's responsible for giving you satisfaction and feeling good. It's one of your feel-good hormones. Well, so is serotonin. It is responsible for regulating good moods as well. So if a therapist recommends to a client to exercise, essentially what that therapist is saying is they are helping them to increase and to get their dopamine and serotonin levels active so that that person can self-serve and be functional during the day without medication. So obviously it depends on the level and severity of their challenge, but if it's mild to moderate, exercising is great. For emotional well-being, a therapist might recommend a good diet, regular sleep habits, exercising, relaxing, sharing quality time with people you love and that value you, setting goals, volunteering, and laughing a lot, because all of those help to improve emotional well-being. And imagine one of your clients coming to you and they have depression or they have anxiety. And if they could just laugh, because we know laughter is the feel-good activity. It makes you feel good. If they volunteer, get out of themselves and out of their problem and invest themselves into someone else, it frees them up from thinking about themselves and it helps them to focus on someone else in an altruistic way. And it always helps you emotionally. For social well-being, the therapist might recommend that you surround yourself with good people who care about you and that you love. They may tell you to practice self-care, meaning have good thoughts. They may take you through a process of helping you understand how to replace negative thoughts and replace them with positive thoughts. They will ask you to engage in hobbies. Hobbies are so fun. They allow you to be competitive and they allow you to grow beyond where you are. Or they may ask you to work on better communication skills, and they typically will have modalities or strategies for that. So that's social. And then finally, for spiritual well-being, a therapist might recommend that you connect or reconnect with God. A holistic therapist who understand the intrinsic need we as humans have for faith and hope in God for today and for our future can help clients lean into their godly purposes and live it out. They may recommend following a daily routine of praying to God about the world, pray about their family and friends, pray about your career, pray about yourself, pray about your emotional turmoil, whatever you're going through, pray it out, because when you speak it and you say it audibly, it just gets outside of you, and that's therapeutic in and of itself. They may ask you to listen to worship music frequently. Research shows that some classical and worship music improve the brain output. And so this is what is involved in typical holistic therapeutic care. There is a lot of listening, but there's also a great amount of recommending clients to engage in these various areas that I shared. And then finally, holistic therapists may also ask clients to look into taking like natural remedies. They may ask them to engage in reflexology or aromatherapy. They may talk about natural herbs and teas and things like that can just help a person to feel good. So it's a myriad of strategies and modalities that a holistic therapeutic specialist may recommend to their clients.
To juxtapose that with professional counseling, as a professional counselor, once you're working through your client intake, you set a treatment plan. One of the things, and I am very visually driven, so I use this visual with my clients. Actually, I say, I want you to think of me as your GPS. And so if you set in, if you input a destination in your GPS is going to say, this is the way you get there. And it may actually give you multiple routes to get there. And so as a professional counselor, that's what your treatment plan is. It is your GPS for the client. How do they get from where they are? So let's say they're depressed to not depressed. And so what does depression look like? What does not depressed look like for them? And then what are the steps that we get there? And then we have regular checkpoints for that progress. How is this client engaging in their treatment plan? And we've all had the full spectrum of clients, those who are really quite passive and they want you to kind of spoon feed them, to those who, man, they're all in and they're ready. They're ready to read the books. They're ready to do the exercises. They're ready for change. And, all of us have to consider that continuum of change that comes with the client. As we are going through those checkpoints for their progress, it might involve referrals. Do they need to go to the medical doctor? Do they need a wellness check? Is there possibly something happening in their life stage that might be hormonally related or related to a physical ailment? Maybe they have a medical disorder that is impacting their psychological disorder. And this can be the full spectrum of things. If a client has blood pressure issues or diabetes or some other physical ailment, that can certainly impact how they are functioning psychologically and emotionally. Maybe they need a referral to their psychiatrist. Maybe they need a med-eval. Maybe it's been a while and they've been taking the same regimen of medications for years, and they just need to kind of have an overhaul in terms of where they are and where they want to go. Even evaluating those over the counters. And I often say, let's consult with a pharmacist. Let's get with somebody who's going to know how different medications are going to interact with each other. Because and you can do research on any disorder. And, if you start adding another, and even an over-the-counter medication, it might interact with a prescribed medication. And I mean, it's something as simple as antacids can interact with some medications that your clients are taking. We don't have to be the experts on all those medications. Praise Jesus, because I don't want to be, but I want to know what those referral sources are. I want to be able to say, and the three questions I always ask is, are you feeling better, same, or worse? So once we've incorporated whatever we're doing in our treatment plan, are you feeling better now? And if they're not feeling better, okay, are you feeling the same? Okay. But if we're feeling worse, then let's sit back and check in and say, okay, if you're feeling worse, let's maybe gather a little more data and see what's happening, what is happening with your sleep pattern, what's happening with your appetite. And, we all know those DSM kind of spectrums, where we are on that, on those types of things. Christina, next slide. These are getting into some of the ethical requirements, and these were just kind of questions that when we were planning, we've heard a lot of. So in terms of treating clients online, the ethical rule 68141G, and years ago, the LPC board removed any limitations for providing services via any modality. But you do need to keep in mind, you also are required to follow HIPAA requirements. And so you want to make sure that however you're choosing to offer your services, that you are staying in line with client confidentiality and those rules as well. Right behind that, and this is not on this slide, but I did look up the rule for CEUs, and the rule for CEUs, and I'm so grateful, and I don't know if this was intentional or we just accidentally did this, but it's 681.141. And so 681.41 is providing services. 681.141 is our CEU requirements. And again, the LPC board removed any of those limitations in terms of how you're choosing to provide your services and or get your training. I did see a question about somebody who was of a certain age and their CEU requirements. I want you to understand this has to do with the status of your license. If your license is active and you're practicing, then you are required to maintain those CEU requirements every renewal cycle. Now, if you have retired, there is a way to put your license on retired status. Am I saying that correctly, Christina? I think it is called retired status. Is that, can you confirm that?
So let me double check. Yeah.
Okay. And so if you are no longer practicing, but, oh, Christina, we're seeing your whole screen.
Yeah,
But if you are in an active practice and you want to keep your license active, you are required to maintain those CEU requirements. And then there were other questions about jurisprudence. Yes, you need to take that every time you renew. The human trafficking course, Christina, please correct me if I'm incorrect. I think that is just one time you need to take that.
I am also confirming that one too. Yes, I have it.
Okay.
I'm waiting to hear back.
And then the fingerprints, I would, what is it? We start 90 days for the renewal. So if it's in this 90-day window, you can get your fingerprints done. I got to tell you, when I did mine, and my renewal was just this past May, I got the fingerprint, like I just made my appointment and went, and it was really very quick. And I think I got an appointment within a week. Holidays certainly can impact that because companies are going to have staff that are, on holiday and different things like that. But you have a 90-day window. And I think the question was somebody's was due January 31st or whatever the last day of January is. So you're going to have all of November, December, and January to complete your fingerprints, your jurisprudence, your human trafficking core, like all that kind of stuff. And I don't, it's not in addition to your CEUs, but it's incorporated in your CEUs. And so if you've got to have 24 CEUs, jurisprudence will be one, that human trafficking could be one. And so you can count all that stuff up.
So I'm
Are there
gonna-
any other questions on that line right now? I'm trying to answer them all at once.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in on that. So the human trafficking is every renewal period. Currently, the jurisprudence is every renewal period currently. So it's better if someone can put their license on inactive status if they plan to possibly come back. It's a little bit easier process than going from retired status. But that is an option that you can do.
Okay, so there's an inactive status and a retired status.
Correct.
Okay, so if you think you might come back into the field inactive versus retired, okay. Okay, thank you. So just to clarify, and I want to be real clear, the jurisprudence requirement is in your LPC rules. The human trafficking requirement, that comes from another set of rules in the state of Texas, and I think it's the occupations code where that comes in.
Say it again. I'm sorry, I was typing.
The requirement for the human trafficking course, that comes from the occupations code?
Yes.
Okay, and so you're not going to find that in our, LPC rules, but keep in mind, as a professional counselor, we are responsible for our LPC rules, but we're also responsible for family code and HIPAA and occupations code and several of those other things. The BHEC website really does a great job of putting links to all those different codes. So if you go to bhec.texas.gov.
Yes.
Okay. And then click the professional counselors link on the right side where it says rules and statutes and all that kind of thing. Go to that tab, and they've got links to all those different codes that we're responsible for in that space. So, okay, Stephen, Vanessa, anything to add?
No,
No.
let's keep trying to get through the PowerPoint, and
Okay.
then we'll tackle a lot of those Q&As that are coming up. We'll get to those at the end.
No problem. Okay. So selling and purchasing products. And again, this is 68141K. All of this is under these general ethical requirements. So as a professional counselor, you may promote any personal or business activities to a client if this is, and we should have bold and circled and underlined and everything, but if the activity, service, or product will facilitate the counseling process or help the client or the client's counseling goals. And so I know clinicians who have done specific training in aromatherapy, and they have those resources available to clients, or somebody might have written a book and have those books available for their clients. Your code allows you to do that. The big if there, though, is if the activity, service, or product helps facilitate the counseling process. I would caution you, however, don't be a used car salesman. That's my little frame there. Okay. And I don't know that we really said anything about this, but I'll say it here. Everything that we're talking about today is based on our personal opinions and experiences. These are not endorsed and or sanctioned by the LPC board specifically. We're just here as individuals who serve on your board to try and help you. And so why I say don't be a used car salesman, I had an experience with a client in years past where their psychiatrist opened a IOP and the PHP IOP, something like that. And so when my client went for her regular med check, their psychiatrist really was pushing them to go into this other program. Would it have benefited the client? I can't speak to that professional's choice to make that recommendation, but what I can say is the client came back and said, I felt really bullied. And I felt like I was being required to do that. And so if you are offering services or products that you feel would benefit your client, that's why I say don't be a used car salesman. Really think in terms of how might your client be receiving this information or this referral or something like that. Often clients welcome it, but not always. And so you just kind of want to keep that caution up there for yourself. The second part here, prior to engaging in such activities, services, or products with a client, you must inform the client of your personal or business interest therein. The particular example I just shared, the other professional just said, hey, it's a new thing. And when it kind of settled out, the client felt like they felt like it was all about money. They felt like they were just being sold another product, and that it wasn't necessarily like this person was just pushing their new service. So that's my caution, is make sure you don't kind of come across as really trying to push something onto your clients, but looking very much at how is this going to promote their treatment plan. Next. Okay, therapeutic boundaries. Now we're getting into the muddy water piece of our ethics. Yes and no, and honestly. Okay,
Hey,
so 681.41
Jamie,
element.
I'm sorry. Here's one of those rude interruptions. With you having done disciplinary informal settlement conferences on the board, what percentage do you think matters that reach that level are related to a failure to maintain these therapeutic boundaries?
Because some of them are clinically related in terms of keeping paperwork and providing paperwork or providing notes and things to clients. And I know we've been given those breakdowns, and I don't have the breakdowns in front of me, but I would say well over 50% are therapeutic boundary issues. And I know we can find those statistics. And so, so 681.41 L&M, you must set and maintain professional boundaries. And, I always say, but there's always the big what if. What if you cross paths with your client in public? My goodness, I have been at the grocery store and, trying to pick out my produce, and on the other side of the produce, somebody's like, and I'm like, hey, and it happens. I've been at church and bumped into clients. I've been at the State Fair of Texas and bumped into clients. And so crossing paths with your clients does not necessarily mean you have failed your therapeutic boundaries. Okay. The number one thing, and I remember, 100,000 years ago when I was in school, of what I was taught is let the client approach you. Okay. Most of the time, my clients have approached me and they've said, hi, how are you doing? And, we're standing over the, tomatoes kind of thing. And it's a very quick, very, crossing paths kind of a thing. I have also, though, I remember one in particular was in a venue, and I was in a space, I was seated, and a client walked in, and I just really got this overwhelming sense that they didn't want anybody to know. I just didn't approach them. I gave them that space to be able to do that or not do that. And then the next time we were in session, I certainly reviewed confidentiality and said, I would never, and I want to make sure that this is a safe space for you. And if we ever cross paths again, I would never disclose that relationship. And so the what if is always out there. You're going to bump into your clients. I am not advocating that any of us close ourselves up in our caves and not go outside. No, live your life, and you're going to bump into your clients, but you have to maintain that professional boundary and give them permission to approach you or not approach you. What you cannot do is you cannot have sex with your client. Seems like this is straightforward stuff, but anyway, I'm going to say it. Don't send your client naked pictures. Don't live with your client. any of these types of things. Even if you feel like it would be therapeutic for them to move into your home and have therapy 24/7, 365, that's not a professional boundary. And so maintain that professional boundary. Think in terms of what you're going to be billing your client for, and maybe also think in terms of how the board might view the interaction you have with your client. So a non-therapeutic relationship is defined in the statute as any non-counseling activity initiated by either the licensee or the client that results in a relationship unrelated to therapy. So even if your client says, hey, and I'm speaking from personal experience, I had a client say, hey, I'm going on a cruise. I'm gonna buy you a ticket and you can go on this cruise with me. I was like, I'm going to respectfully decline, because as much as I'd love to go on a cruise, that would be unrelated to their therapy. And we, by the way, had some conversations after that in terms of what the therapeutic relationship was supposed to be. And I mean, it was a very kind offer. They felt I'd served them and they wanted to bless me, but that would have been far beyond the $50 limitation that the rules allows us to receive from that. Okay. Any other comments, Stephen or Vanessa?
No, let's keep going.
Okay. Social media was on there. The only thing I would say, and I think we had a white paper or something on that in the last couple of years. Social media is a tricky one because if you want to use it to promote your practice, then maybe you need to set up a page that is a professional page. And I'm thinking like LinkedIn and some of those types of things where people can find you, can find your services. But again, kind of exchanging your vacation pictures or your personal types of things, you want to maintain some of that. Okay, Christina, next. Ending treatment, helping clients with whom you don't agree. And I truly think that helping client, or how do you help clients that you don't agree with? I really do think that's a minority of occurrences, but let's go ahead and have the conversation. If you feel like you are not qualified to serve a client, either because of your training or because of your personal beliefs or anything like that, you do still have a duty to help them find somebody who is. And so in my own profession, and I've had many, clients call who are struggling with eating disorders. I don't treat eating disorders. I have not been trained to treat eating disorders. And I would just feel very ill-equipped. But what I have done in my profession is I have found, okay, who are some of the top resources in the area that I can help these people connect with, and I do my best to connect them with either be individuals or organizations that serve that type of thing. Same thing with marriage counseling. I just don't feel like I'm very gifted in marriage counseling, and so I refer those out. Somebody who's got Gottman training and things like that. So if I don't feel like I'm qualified to serve them, I still want to help them find somebody who can help them. I don't approach it from I don't do that, good luck, because I think that would not be, what we need to be looking at professionally. We're professionals who are helping people. And so if we can't help them, let's get them to someone who can help them. One experience, and this is related to the faith piece, one experience I had, it's been a number of years ago, I worked in a grant funded program. And so because we were grant funded, there were a variety, even though it was a Christian organization, there were a variety of folks who came in. And I had this one family that came for services, and they were, doing their intake paperwork. And the mother indicated to our receptionist that she wanted to talk to me before they started their session. And so I brought her into my office while the remainder of the family waited. And she said, I'm just really concerned. She said, I just need you to know that I'm a Buddhist and my husband's an atheist. And I said, okay, oh, I'm a Christian. I said, but why are you here? What are you coming for? And you know, we're having difficulty with our teenager, and this is happening in our family, da, da, da. And I said, okay, would you like to focus on that issue? And she said, yes. And I said, then you're welcome, you know, let's take the next step. And so they came in, we did intake, I served them, you know, issue was resolved, and we ended that therapeutic cycle. About a year later, I got a call from the mom, and she said, hi, you know, this is mom of so-and-so. I don't know if you remember us. And in my head, I thought, yes, I do remember you. She said, the issue we came for in the past, that's still okay, but we have this new issue. Can we come back to counseling? I said, absolutely. The door's open. Come on in. And so as a professional, although we had different religious beliefs, I was still, and I felt like I did a good job serving this family professionally, and especially because they came back and felt like whatever our religious beliefs were, that didn't you know, sit between the professional service for the client. And so when we're looking at being a professional counselor, although we're not proselytizing clients, we're not, you know, we're not evangelizing, that's not our goal. Our goal is serving the client. We still come to the, you know, therapeutic session as who we are. And so while we might not be, you know, really laying our belief system onto the client, we're able to focus on what their needs are, what they brought to the professional session, so that we can serve them in that manner. And we all understand this. If we feel like they're not benefiting from the relationship, we need to start that termination. And then we need to provide additional professional counseling referrals that might help them. And sometimes they need a higher level of care. They need to go to an IOP or a PHP, and then they could come back and be sustained with you. Or like the other examples, that if it's just not a specialty that you treat, that you're connecting them with somebody who does treat that specialty. Okay. So when do you provide resources and referrals? The name of the game here is collaboration, in my opinion. Okay. Consult with psychiatrists, offer resources to dietitians or holistic modalities. Maybe a client has a gluten allergy or some kind of hormonal need, and they need things that are not going to be resolved in therapy. If somebody has I personally have dealt with thyroid disorder for almost 40 years now, I guess. And I just know that can really trigger emotional responses, but no amount of therapy is going to treat my thyroid disorder. Like, I'm going to have some type of medication intervention to treat my thyroid. And so having those resources, knowing kind of who you're going to refer folks out to, is going to help you personally and professionally be more well-rounded in what you're offering your clients. Vanessa, what would you say there?
I would go with what you're saying, since I'm not an LPC. I typically, for me, from a holistic care perspective, I would have a tendency to refer people out when they are no longer really progressing with me, or if they are unable to get through perhaps an area in life, they're just stuck. I always find that's a symptom of a bigger issue, and so I'll refer them out. Who do I refer people out to? Typically, I will seek other licensed professional counselors that I know personally and ask them to give me recommendations. Or I will also seek out other Christian counselors that have a very strong grasp in an area that perhaps I'm not working well in, and vice versa. So that's how I make determinations on referring people out, is basically if they're able to progress, if they're not progressing, or if they seem to be reversing in any way, just being challenged in areas that I felt like we made progress in, and now I see a relapse. Sometimes I'll just get somebody else involved to get another perspective and see what's going on.
The next one should be our last slide, and these are resources. And I know somebody asked about the book. The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. This is to me, a must read for all clinicians. If you are a professional counselor, this is, if you haven't read it, it's time to read it. If you've read it, and I'll be very, very honest, in preparing for this, I was like, oh, I think maybe I need to read this again. But there were something that I wanted to share with you. It's on page 56 of his book. And he says, it's amazing how many psychological problems involve difficulties with sleep, appetite, touch, digestion, et cetera, et cetera. Any effective treatment has to address these basic housekeeping functions of the body. And if you feel safe and loved, your brain becomes specialized in exploration, play, and cooperation. If you're frightened and unwanted, it specializes in managing feelings of fear and abandonment. And so again, all clinicians should have read or be reading The Body Keeps the Score, in my opinion. The second one, Change Your Brain, Change Your Life by Daniel Amen. This is both for the clinician and the client. So if you want resources that you can refer your clients to, this is one that I refer clients to frequently. Is very well organized, and you don't even have to assign the whole book. He organized it where you basically have 2 chapters on the different parts of the book. So if somebody's struggling with depression, maybe you just recommend those chapters on depression. If they're struggling with anxiety, just those chapters on anxiety. But I feel like it really empowers the client to educate themselves on what the things they can do and how they can be proactive in their own treatment plan. Okay, I think that's our last slide. So maybe if we have some questions that need to be addressed, Christina.
Okay. Let's see, let's start. I think you got some of those. I wanted to clarify real quick on the jurisprudence and the human trafficking. So I did get 100% clarification. The jurisprudence is currently not required at every renewal. There is some proposed language. It's not close to being effective yet or anything like that. It's still in the beginning stages where it would be required. So right now, the Texas jurisprudence is not required at each renewal, but if it's taken, we will count it for 1 hour of ethics. In relation to the human trafficking course, that is required at every renewal. Okay, let's see here. Let's start with. So here's one: pursuant to the rules, if a client terminates counseling without contact, are we to provide referrals if they believe they are still need counseling services? Yes.
If they've terminated services, you might put a closing note in the client file or something that, if you want to, put in there that they terminated services and there's been no contact. And maybe if you have some ideas or whatever, you might want to just jot a couple of those notes down. It's the client's right. They have a right to seek services with whom they wish to seek services. Now, if you feel like they are a danger to themselves or others, then we do have responsibilities to act on that. But in terms of just general service, you want to have good quality customer service, even with, in the mental health field and counseling field there.
Okay. Is there any way, is there any protection for LPCs that work in schools when making referrals and or recommendations? For example, the school is telling the LPC you can't make a referral or recommendation for treatment, or the school will have to pay for it, even when the school LPC isn't qualified to provide the services.
So this has to do with a specific thing. Okay. And this, and I would recommend you follow up with, like I know in Dallas, it's Region 10. I don't know what your school district is, but follow up with that school region. So if you are recommending that a child get a psychological evaluation, then that goes to, yes, the school's going to have to pay for it. If you have just a list of referrals and the family struggling and, you know, or even if a kid is suicidal and the and you're recommending that they go have an evaluation, a safety evaluation or something like that, I think there's an opportunity for you to develop a referral list. So it's not that you're saying they need one particular you know, type of a thing. But you do need to learn what liabilities you are requiring of your school. Now, as a professional, is there what was the question? Are there safety, are there any safety measures? Really not. You know, and so some of that's going to be, and I would also develop your own consultation group. If you're still in supervision, then you've got that ability to consult with your supervisor and probably peers. If you're beyond supervision, or even if you're a supervisor like myself, I have a collaboration group so that you can really kind of ask some of those questions. And look at that. And it might be that you're referring the parent to their insurance carrier to see who their insurance carrier might have on the panel to be able to provide services for them. Or no, I mean, there are grant programs around and different things like that. So look at what resources are available, especially in your community, that you could refer where you wouldn't also then be incorporating a liability.
Hey, Christina, since it's 1 o'clock and I know some people will have to start dropping off, can you let everyone know where they'll be able to access the PowerPoint from today?
Yes, it will be on our website under, I think we had it under agency news. Yes, it'll be there under the, not under agency news, but under the board news. It'll be listed there next to where you got on this meeting. And it'll be available there for you all. So,
and Christina, also share that this counts as a CEU hour.
Correct. So, yes, once you log off of the meeting, you will be prompted to complete a short survey. It's only 2 questions. Once you do that is how we get the information to send you the continuing education certificate. It looks like we have a hand raised over here. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and if you guys are good to take another call.
Sure.
So okay. And this is Joan McGuire. Joan, it looks like you are muted. There you are.
Oh, yeah. Do we have to get the fingerprinting for every renewal of license? Is that something required every time you renew?
Fingerprinting is one time with the agency. So you can't
Okay.
do it with another agency or a school district. You have to do it with our agency and it's one time. If you have multiple licenses, so if you're also a social worker and an LPC, you still only have to do it once. It's for the agency.
Okay, yeah, I did it for my last renewal. I have one coming up again next year, so I just wanted to know about that.
Yes, if you already did it, you do not have to do it again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We have another person. Is it Shruti? Sorry, I'm really bad at names, so I apologize ahead of time. You are muted. There you are.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My question was, sorry, I'm at a conference. My question was the same. I'll be doing fingerprinting for the first time in my next renewal. And I thank you for answering that 90 days. I can start in November. But I was confused about where do I go? There are different kinds of, and I found that there is just there 1 or 2 different kinds of background checks, but so I'm confused. Do I go to DPS in Austin or?
Yeah, please.
Is there something?
everyone, there, we have a specific link on our website. There's if you go to the LPC board webpage on the right-hand side, there's a specific information there for fingerprinting. So if you go there, you should be able to find all the information on there. If you cannot, please use the contact us form, and that will get you over to the individual who specifically works on the fingerprinting. So they'll be able to help you a lot easier. But all the
Thank you so
information
much.
should be there. Absolutely. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, it looks like maybe one more for, I'm not, only one hand raised right now. And is it Donaha?
It's Donja.
Oh, sorry.
No, no worries. Good try though. So my question is, and I typed it earlier, but how would one approach things such as energy healing, yoga, meditation, shamanic practices certified in these, incorporating them into their LPC practice? And how would one ethically advertise within the parameters of our ethics?
So if you are trained and competent, then that's within your purview to do those things. On the advertising thing, I'm going to refer you to the advertising code. I just, off the top of my head, I don't know. What I know about our advertising limitations is if you are an LPC associate, you have to advertise that you're an associate and who your supervisor is. In terms of incorporating your specialties, though, I don't really know that the LPC board's going to have much to say about a specialty or another certification that you might have. That really, so think in terms of our rules really are designed to provide that guidance for our license, not for other certifications that you might have.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, you guys. This presentation has been amazing.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, we have another who is, I think it's Lois. You are muted.
I'm sorry, I was just looking to see something, but I am confused a little bit about why some of these questions are coming up. I mean, if you know the rules, you shouldn't be asking some of these questions, but there is one from Rebecca Wren. I understand that counselors, we must respect and include spiritual components. Her question is, why are there people who say they are Christian counselors when as therapists, we ethically should not take our values into the counseling office? And I think that's a good question.
So
yeah.
Lois, like Vanessa, and if you, and I appreciate you saying, if you read the rules, up in the beginning of the rules category, it has some of these different labels like Christian counselor, pastoral counseling, and things like that. And
Right.
And there is a space in our world to be able to do that. Now, if you're a professional counselor, you might want to have that distinction. But again, that, like myself included, I went to Dallas Seminary and my counseling degree is in biblical counseling. And that was the degree path that I chose to come into the professional field. And so using and incorporating that, there is an opportunity to do that. And then if clients aren't interested in engaging in that, they have a right not to. They can choose an alternative source for doing that. But in terms of, really spending the counseling session for evangelization, no, that's not what we're here for.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have Daniela.
Hi, Christina. Thank you. I just wanted to ask about the CEUs. You did mention how we can get them and I missed by typing. So if you can repeat that, please.
Sure. When you end your webinar view, it's going to prompt you to complete a survey. Once you complete that survey, is when we will get the notification to send you the continuing education certificate. So it will be emailed to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, Christina, it's about 10 after 1. So
Yeah.
I mean, maybe one last question if there's one that, or if someone's raising their hand.
I have 3 left raising the hand.
3 left.
Mm,
Okay.
Do these
But
3
Janie
real-
and Vanessa, it's up to y'all if you're willing to stick around for a
Fine.
second.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fine.
All right, let's do these last 3. So the first one I have is artists.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Thank you guys so much for being here. I want to be respectful of your time, so I'll talk quickly. I am applying to get licensed in Oklahoma in addition to my Texas license. And on the Oklahoma paperwork, there is documentation that BHAC needs to do. And so my question to you is, do you want it digitally or snail mail? Because it seems as though most of it is requested digital by BHAC, but Oklahoma wants it to be mailed to BHAC. So there's kind of a conflict.
And tell me again, what was it that you're trying to send in?
To get licensed in Oklahoma, I'm licensed here in Texas.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And so there's
in
documentation.
Everything in Texas is online. All of
Okay.
our applications are online. There may be a couple things that you need to get sent in, like the transcripts should be, almost all universities can send it by e-script. So it'll come directly to us, the NCE.
I mean, I have my license here in Texas. So to get the Oklahoma one, there's 2 pages that Oklahoma requires Texas BHAC to complete. And I
Okay.
just don't know how to get
So
those
you're
to
wanting the
you guys.
verification from Texas.
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't know the proper
Okay.
terminology.
Oh, no,
You
that's
were
okay.
right.
That's okay. Yes. So we do have the verification online also,
Okay.
that you can complete. I think it's $50 to get that
Okay.
verification done. And then we'll send those, the text.
Okay, thank you.
records.
I just obviously didn't find that spot. So
That's
thank you
okay.
so much.
All right,
Appreciate you
thank
guys. All right.
Okay. Next one is Frederico.
Yes, thank you. So I'm an LPC and I provide adventure therapy with clients for their own clinical needs, right? For me, their own clinical needs. What I'm finding is that I'm having other therapists come to me interested in providing adventure therapy services with their clients. So if they are not trained in adventure therapy, it goes beyond the scope of their training. If they want to contract me to work with them and their clients to do these kinds of experiential activities like on a ropes course or archery or kayaking, what are the considerations that I need to be aware of and inform the therapists and also the participating families?
I would make sure you have like some type of a professional agreement and look in terms of your scope and what you're doing and how you're billing. Are you billing the client? Then you're probably going to need to have a client file and go through some of that type of thing. Think in terms of if you, if the client comes back and says, hey, I need my notes, I need to send it into my employer to get my days approved off or whatever, that type of thing. If you're thinking, well, I don't have anything, and the other therapist is like, well, I wasn't trained in that. And so you want to have that collaboration and piece in place to know who's doing what, so that at the end of the day, whatever the professional requirement is being covered.
Okay. So it would be a matter of making sure that I communicate that well, of course, right, well with the therapist beforehand. Because I'm thinking that I wouldn't necessarily take that client onto my caseload if they're coming in with their therapist.
The other thing is I would consult with your professional insurance and what they're going to require to for that to be a covered service.
Okay.
And so I think you need to, and maybe even if you have in terms of your practice, your practice insurance and things like that, I would do a little consultation in terms of what liabilities are you still going to hold. I don't provide adventure therapy and I'm not trained in that. So I don't really know what the liabilities might be in that, but you're going to want to make sure that those liabilities are covered and that, it's not. So at the end of the day, if something happens, that you've vetted it out and you know what you're doing there.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the last one we have is Jessica Lopez.
Hi, thank you so much. I have a couple of questions. If a client resided in Texas, but they moved out of state and are still wanting to see you as a therapist because they've been with you for a good while, what is the ethics around that?
So you're going to want to check with whatever state they're in. Some states do have a little, are pretty open with reciprocity. Some are very closed. And so you don't want to get in trouble with the licensing board in another state. And so you're going to have to follow whatever that licensing requirement is. At the moment, we're hoping that counseling compact goes through legislation in the next legislative session. It is not in place today. In any state. There are many states who are in support of it, but it does not exist. And so there's no counseling compact for us to sign on to yet. We're all hoping that that goes through and that's, something that will make it smoother for our clients in the future. But today you've got to look at what your liabilities are, what you're responsible for the state of Texas. That's what we're here for. But then what you might be responsible for in another jurisdiction.
Awesome, thank you. One final question. I'm starting to do virtual workshops that are more psychoeducational. Is that something that is okay across states and open to the public?
I honestly don't know the answer to that. Stephen, do you, as the attorney here?
I think it's more of an issue for the people in those states that are accessing it, isn't it?
So psychoeducation is more of just an information workshop. It's not therapy. And so I wouldn't put that, because you're not going to keep a case note in terms of what your client said and the treatment plan for your client. It's more like this. Like if somebody in Oklahoma were watching this workshop, could they get CEUs?
Correct.
I don't think that the board has any rule against not allowing access to someone outside of the state. I don't think it's an issue.
Okay. I wouldn't think it was, but I just wanted to make sure because I'm about to embark on that. And I just wanted to make sure that I was staying in lines with my license. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. Thank you for answering both questions. I appreciate it. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
The only thing I would add to that is seek legal counsel also.
Yes.
Make sure that because we're not attorneys for you. So you need to be sure and do that on your end as well and make sure you have those bases covered.
Great idea. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Okay, Christine, we probably ought to wrap it up here. Janie and Vanessa, I want to personally thank you both for the time and effort that you put into preparing this presentation. A fantastic job. So thank you on behalf of the board. Thank you on behalf of our Texas LPCs for the work that you both put into this.
You're welcome.
Welcome.
Pleasure.
All right. Thank you all.
Thanks everyone for attending, and watch for news about the next time that we do one of these.
Yes, and I'll be getting some information posted to our website about the counseling compact. We're getting a lot of questions on it, so I will get something out there for people and to follow that commission itself, and so keep an eye out for that. All right, thank you everyone.
Thanks everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you all.